Welcome to Prep Central, New Mexico's premier high school sports show. This show is presented by Western New Mexico University. If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on all your favorite platforms like YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. We hope you'll consider that. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source. Hey everyone, welcome on this week's edition of Preps Central, the Albuquerque Journal's high school sports podcast. We're going to talk a lot of basketball, of course. We're down to the final, week and a half of the regular season. And we're going to have state brackets coming up before you know it. We're going to talk a lot of basketball. We're going to talk some track and field. The state's top two male runners both have significant developments that have occurred over the last week. We're going to talk some prep baseball briefly, a local team ranked in the top 100 in the country. And I offer my thoughts on this barrage of record breakers in the single-game three-point standings by several boys around the state. You may not like what I have to say. I hope you'll listen. But all of that on the menu today. So listen and enjoy. Hey, welcome everyone. I'm James Yodice. I am the Prep Sports Editor here at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome to Preps Central, the Journal's high school sports podcast. A lot to talk about today, actually, not just basketball. First, of course, we want to recognize our sponsor, Western New Mexico University. We thank them, as always, for their support and their contributions that help make this possible. Like I said, a lot to talk about today. We'll start with basketball. We're down to the final. As I said here, it's Wednesday, February 12th, so we're down to the final 11 days of regular season. Then the district tournaments will start the Monday after that. So we're getting down to it. The state tournament brackets will be out on Sunday, March 2nd. Most of the district tournaments will finish up either Friday, February 28th, or Saturday, March 1st. Then on that Sunday, we'll get state tournament brackets. So let's start with basketball. We're going to run through some of the quick highlight games, in my opinion, just from the larger classes over the last week. We'll start with the Sandia boys, who lost a double overtime game to La Cueva a couple of weeks ago. The rematch was in Sandia's gym last Friday. Sandia holds on for a 67-64 win. So Sandia takes a one-game lead over La Cueva in the 2-5A standings. However, Santa Fe is also at the same mark as Sandia is. So right now we have La Cueva sitting in third place with Sandia and Santa Fe at the top. And Sandia still has a road game at Santa Fe, I believe, next week, a game that could decide the regular season. I think that game is a week from Friday, but I'm not 100% sure as I say that. So Sandia is in a position to get back after losing that game to La Cueva. Sandia's freshman, Gad Harris, who had 31 points, he is as impressive a freshman as there is in 5A basketball at probably any level. A tremendous talent, and the kid has so much polish and poise for a ninth grader, and he doesn't even really look like a freshman. Just really a tremendous kid to watch. Sandia is still young in the backcourt. They've got a couple of freshmen back there, including Gad and Isaiah Brown. We're going to see how those two pan out at the state tournament. They're still young, and they're going to be facing more veteran teams in the playoffs than themselves. But Sandia, of course, has plenty of other pieces, including some experienced kids like Thomas Adams, their senior forward, for example. So Sandia gets a big win over La Cueva and kind of gets a measure of payback for losing that double overtime game at La Cueva, a game in which Sandia led by 22, blew that lead, lost in two overtimes. Down south, and I don't get a chance to wade into these waters very often, Roswell, who I got a chance to see play Cleveland back 2 months ago now. It's hard to believe it was 2 months ago in the championship game of the Cleveland tournament. Roswell beat Hobbs the other day, 79-69. So that creates a tie atop District 4 5A between the Coyotes and Hobbs. And those two are not scheduled to play each other again. So we are definitely on course for a playoff game between those two teams week after next. And you got to think we'll probably see them in the district tournament championship game too. So a key win for Roswell. Roswell is an athletic group. That was my impression when I watched them play Cleveland. Good chemistry, great athleticism. They have that, and they've got several of the key football players from their state championship football team who play basketball as well, like quarterback Jacob Palomino, for example. This team's got speed and athleticism, some length. Roswell would be a difficult matchup for just about anybody at state just because of their special athleticism and chemistry. So that is one of those teams that's not quite on the main radar, but now they jump into it a little bit more. You know, we've been thinking about Volcano Vista, of course, and Sandia and Hobbs to a certain degree, but we hadn't been talking much about Roswell. This win by Roswell gets them more in the picture now, doesn't it? So we're gonna pay attention a little bit to see how the end of the regular season goes, and then the district tournament as well. From District 5A, Albuquerque High had a big home win the other night over Atrisco Heritage. I think it was 72-51. So those were the top two teams in the district. Albuquerque High has now swept Atrisco. So that regular season basically is over now. Albuquerque High certainly going to be a top 8 seed at state. Their seeding position is going to be really interesting, I think. Albuquerque High had a good weekend. I mean, they basically clinched the regular season against Atrisco on Friday night. Then they came back on Saturday afternoon and played Cibola in a non-district game and came from well back in the second half to beat Cibola 56-53. So Albuquerque High had a good weekend. They're playing great basketball. They're on a bit of a lengthy win streak. So the Bulldogs, who were a Final Four team last year, people always forget, they were an 11 seed but made it to the semifinals, starting to gear up. Girls' side, and from District 1-5A, Volcano Vista had a key win over Rio Rancho on Monday night of this week, 50-46, I believe. Volcano leads District 1-5A by a single game over Farmington, and those two teams are meeting on Thursday night out on the west side. That's a game I'm going to be at. Those are two of the very, very few teams I have not actually seen in person this year, meaning Farmington and VV. So Volcano Vista, a really interesting story. I'm really keen to watch this game. They lost probably their best player, guard Mila Espinoza, to an ACL injury just within the last couple of weeks against Cleveland. And they still beat Rio Rancho, and now they lead the district. So Coach Lisa Villarreal, who's a bit of a savant when it comes to basketball, they've got just a humongous game now on Thursday night against Farmington. They basically will clinch the regular season if they can beat Farmington. That will open up a 2-game lead with basically a week left in the season. So a huge game. I'll be out at Volcano Vista on Thursday night for that one. Rio Rancho, which in my mind was the favorite in this district before we got started. Of course, we've talked about them a little bit with Coach Lori Mabry not really being the head coach. She's sitting on the bench with them. They're down to, I think, 4th place now in this district. One of the things I am really, really interested to see when we get to March 2nd is how many teams out of that district, District 1, are going to end up with a top 8 seed. You got 4 pretty good teams between Volcano, Farmington, Cleveland, and Rio Rancho. I think the top 2 for sure will get a home game at state. Maybe there's a third team. I don't see how all 4 of the top teams in that district are going to get a home game. It's possible, sure. I don't see that happening. We'll have to see how the rest of the regular season plays out. But yeah, Volcano Vista's girls are in good position, and they look like they're overcoming the loss of Mila Espinoza, who passed 1,000 points in her career with Volcano this year. And remember, Volcano was in the state championship game last March, where they lost to Sandia. The other key game was one I was at on Saturday night in Gallup. Kirtland Central came down to play Gallup in the repeat match in District 1-4A. I attended the first game as well in Kirtland 2 weeks previous, a game Kirtland won by 14. and outplayed Gallup. Gallup was not at 100%. They had a key guard. Their coach, Todd McBroom, told me that guard, whose name is Alicia Slinky, would be back for the second game, and she was a factor. But Kirtland Central just blew Gallup out of its own gym, 70-45. The game was close early, and then Kirtland Central had a 20-0 run to start the second quarter, and basically that was it. Gallup was not going to make up that difference once they got down 20 points. Actually, it was an overall 22-0 run if you included the end of the first quarter. Look, everyone is in agreement that this is a very strong Gallup team, and they've got good bigs on this team. They do, including Riley Whitehair. But their guards, and in fact, guards from just about everybody Kirtland plays, and this would even include a team like Sandia, have struggled to deal with Kirtland Central's pressure and quickness and tenacity. Kirtland is a team that turned you over a bunch. They weren't able to do it against Hobbs. Hobbs was just, superior in every way when those two teams played in the championship game of the Albuquerque Metro Tournament. But Kirtland Central's guards are giving Gallup just enormous headaches. And everybody still agrees these are the two best teams in 4A, girls. But the gap between Kirtland and Gallup is, especially after Kirtland goes on the road and wins in a sold-out Gallup gym, and it was a great environment the other night early on when the game was close, and then Kirtland just took the wind out of the entire gym, not counting their own fans, of course, with that lengthy run. So Kirtland, clearly the number one team out there. If this team stays healthy, I don't see how anybody's going to stop them. Not Gallup, not any of the good teams in the metro area like Academy, like Valencia, like St. Pius. None of these teams can truly match up with Kirtland. We'll see. I know a couple of them, like Valencia in particular, think they might match up well with Kirtland if it comes to that. But right now, 4A girls, Kirtland is to lose. Okay, before we move on to a couple of other sports, I want to circle back to one of the highlights of the last week. Last Thursday night out at Volcano Vista, Ryan Gonzalez, their senior guard, hit a state record 17 three-pointers in what proved to be a 98-45 win for Volcano Vista over Piedra Vista. The three-point record the single-game record has been kind of under barrage just this calendar year. There was a kid from Texaco who tied the record at 15 on January 3rd. Then a young kid from Springer, Pablo Romero, broke the record on January 11th with 16 three-pointers. So his record only lasted 26 days, 3 weeks and 5 days, before Ryan Gonzalez hit 17 threes in the win over Piedra Vista last week. And as a not unimportant side note, Ryan Gonzalez scored 62 points in this game, which is an APS record, Albuquerque Public Schools record. Shane Dumas Sanchez had scored 60 in a game against El Dorado 2 years earlier. Ryan's 62, top mark for any boy from one of the APS high schools. And he is now tied for 6th all-time on the single-game list. The overall record is still 81 points, so that looks to be safe. So here's the thing. All three of the kids that I'm talking about, the kid from Texaco, Jet Curtis, I believe is his name, Pablo Romero from Springer, Ryan Gonzalez from Volcano, all of these kids, and this is going to be a sore point, and what I'm about to say is not necessarily going to be popular among some of you who are hearing my voice. You cannot get a record like this unless you leave a kid basically out on the floor the entire game with the intent of breaking a record. The Texaco kid, this kid from Springer, the Volcano Vista player, Gonzalez, all three of these guys, I want to make it clear, all three of these accomplishments are outstanding, awesome, and just must have been amazing to sit in a gym and watch them. However, there is a downside to this, sort of an ugly thing that nobody really talks about, but I'm going to right now. You cannot get a record like this, especially in basketball, where the clock is running once you're up by 35 points. All three of these kids were involved in games in which the team that won by, I think, about 50, at least 50. Meaning that when the record was broken, the clock was still running. In Volcano's case, having spoken to somebody who was there, it sounded like Volcano was not really defending the ball all that hard, basically letting Piedra Vista get a shot off or get a basket off so they could get back on offense and get the ball to Ryan Gonzalez. Now, Ryan had 11 threes at halftime, so he only needed 5 to tie the state record and 6 to break it. You cannot break records like this or attempt to break records like this without that weird optic of pushing the pace in a game that you're winning by 40 or 50 points when the clock is running, and you're still running a starter out there, maybe even multiple starters, to help get a kid a record. I have to admit, I am bothered when I hear this. It doesn't matter what the sport is. This comes into play with football sometimes. And like I said, as great as the individual accomplishment is, these are all coming in games in which the coaches clearly have decided, along with their kids, they're just going to get the record, no matter how many points they might be leading by, no matter how much of a risk there might be in a kid getting hurt, being out there in a game that's already decided. It rubs some people the wrong way. It rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Like I said, I don't begrudge the kids their records. I don't. I mean, it's not really the kids doing. But look, you can't get there without making a decision that you're just going to keep putting your big kids out there and you're going to leave them out there to get a record, even in a game when everything has been decided. So I know I'm not alone in this, and I'm really not trying to sound like, some old guy who's bitter at the way records are being broken. I'm not. But the optics of it, to be honest and to be fair, are a little odd. They just are. I wish they weren't. If these totals are coming in games that are close or relatively close, there's not really much room to say anything about it. But you've got coaches that are clearly out there. They've just decided they're going to get a kid a record. Everything else be damned. And it's just a matter of time probably before we see a kid hit 20 3-pointers in a game. It seems like that's coming sooner rather than later, right? I mean, the way kids shoot three. I mean, look, the NBA is becoming an entirely 3-point shooting league. Kids are watching this, so they're out, and they do nothing but shoot 3-pointers, most of them anyway. So, like I said, I'm really not trying to ruffle feathers, but the truth of it is kids can't achieve records like this without the optics of going out and looking like you're trying to rub it in. That is it. I don't particularly like it. Like I said, this is not really directed at kids, but it's a weird thing. And sometimes it can be hard to, and I've seen records like this in other sports too. I've seen this happen in football a bunch. And I'm on record many times with being opposed to teams running up the score, just trying to stat pad a certain quarterback or running back or wide receiver or whatever. I've seen it happen a lot, and I've been very vocal about this in print, in the journal, through the years. When I see it in person, it usually offends me. I haven't been at any of these games in person relating to the 3-pointers, but, great shooting. I mean, look, no matter how much effort goes into trying to get a kid a record, the kid himself still has to go out and make the shots. So, Ryan Gonzalez scores 62 damn points. That's astonishing, and that kid is only the third scoring option on that team. That's one of the really underappreciated aspects of this story. Kenyon Aguino, the kid who was signed, the senior forward from Volcano, is going to Montana. David Lunn, a sophomore forward. These are the top 2 scoring options at Volcano. Ryan Gonzalez is the third scoring option. So you're talking about a kid who isn't even the prime scoring option, scoring 62 points and making 17 threes in a game. That part of it, I don't think, is getting enough play because that is pretty impressive. These are not your star guys. Now, Volcano's 2 best players are both primarily inside guys. David Lund probably more than Kenyon Aguino, but for a kid who's basically the third option to go out, put up 62 with the 17 threes, that really is one of the things that impresses me the most. So I didn't mean to get on my soapbox about this. Like I said, I know what I'm saying is not going to be popular with everybody. Maybe some of you will agree with me. I don't know. You're welcome to write me on my email address and either tell me I'm an idiot or tell me you agree. Doesn't really matter. You can find me on X at James D. Yodice. That has my email address on there on my front page. So if anything I've said triggers you into writing and voicing an opinion one way or another, I welcome it. No problem. I'm always welcome for some good, healthy debate. Okay, we're going to move on now. Track and field up next. Couple of developments over the last few days. Number one, and most importantly, Corbin Coombs, the senior from Oregon Mountain High School in Las Cruces, competed in the Millrose Games in New York City last weekend. He was entered in the boys' mile and went out and finished second with an extremely elite field there. It's an indoor meet, of course, and ran the mile in 4 minutes, 2.59 seconds. He broke the New Mexico state record, the prep record, which was 4 minutes, 2.65 seconds, so 600ths of a second. That was held by Shadrach Kiptu Biwat, who ran for La Cueva. He had set the record in 2004, and Shadrach went on to have an All-American career in college at the University of Oregon. So Corbin breaks a record that had been held for almost 21 years. And an interesting, I found out, I cover a lot of track and field. I had never heard this, and I just always assumed the opposite. I was having a conversation with a coach, and I was talking about the state record. Shadrach Kiptu's previous record was recorded at an outdoors meet. Corbin Coombs from Oregon Mountain did it at an indoor meet. And I always assumed that the indoor meets times would automatically be a little bit faster. Actually, from what this coach told me, this veteran coach told me, it's actually the reverse. The outdoor times generally would be slightly faster than the indoor times, making Corbin Coombs' time even more impressive that he would break this state mark at an indoor meet. And I had a chance to catch up with Corbin on Saturday just to visit with him for the story that I wrote. You can find that at abqjournal.com. I wrote a big piece on Saturday about this. He was talking about the quality of the field and how excited he was just to go up against that kind of competition. And he said he wasn't really thinking about the record really during the race at all. So, but it's his now. Of course, Corbin is also the state record holder in the state track and field meet in the 1,600 meters, which is essentially a mile. And he also is the state cross-country champion from last November, where he became the first boy in the modern era, basically, to break 15 minutes on a course. Now, of course, every course is a little different. I mean, I've seen state cross-country at several venues, including Red Rock State Park out in Gallup, where it was for many years. It was held at Rio Rancho High School for many years. Now it's being held at Albuquerque Academy. Every course is a little bit different. Of course, weather conditions play a lot into this, but Corbin went well under 15 minutes to win state cross country. So he is putting up some astonishing marks and numbers, both in cross country and on the track. And of course, the track and field season started this week here in New Mexico. So Corbin he told me one thing I asked him about was college. He said he believes he's got a college in mind, but he's not ready to announce yet. He said he felt like it was still multiple weeks away from him announcing. Of course, and he's got a big schedule planned for the spring. He's doing indoor meets in New York City and Philadelphia, and he's going to be doing outdoor meets, he told me, both in suburban Phoenix and in Southern California, in addition to whatever New Mexico schedule he has. So congratulations to Corbin for breaking the mile record. Charlie Voss, the 2023 5A state cross-country champion from Rio Rancho High School, was also at the Millrose Games running the mile. Charlie finished 9th, which is super. I mean, top 10 in this race is super impressive. And Charlie also just on Monday of this week signed with BYU for his college choice. So Charlie, big news for him as well. He won the Nike Cross Nationals, the first New Mexican to ever win that race up near Portland. I think it was early last December or maybe late November. I can't remember the date for sure, but Charlie was the first New Mexican to win the Nike Cross Nationals, and he did it on a cold, muddy day. So big news for both Charlie and Corbin Coombs. So before we get out, a couple of quick notes. One on wrestling. The girls have had their regional meet. That was last weekend. The boys are going to have their regional meet this weekend. These are basically the last qualifiers for state. The state meet's coming up next week, 21st and 22nd, out at the Rio Rancho Event Center. So pretty much the last chance for kids to get qualified for state. Coming off the the Metro meet where we saw two undefeated girls wrestle each other, Jaden Meadows from Sandia, Eloise Woolsey from Cleveland. They wrestled in the 165-pound final. We talked about this last week. And the Cleveland girl, Woolsey, who transferred in from Hawaii, won by pin in about 2.5 minutes. Those two will definitely be not at the same weight for the state tournament. Woolsey, as she told me at the Metro meet, she's going back down to 152 pounds. Jaden Meadows is going to remain at 165. So both of those girls are going to be heavily favored to win state for a third time. They're both juniors. Woolsey won two state titles in Hawaii before she and her family moved here last summer, and Jaden Meadows already has 2 titles with Sandia. Last note, baseball related, and baseball season is going to be here quick. Matter of fact, I need to get on that with baseball and softball starting regular seasons very soon. The Max Preps Top 100 rankings came out today. I saw this on social media. They highlighted the top 25, but they actually listed what they thought were the top 100 teams. La Cueva, the defending 5A state champion, was ranked number 66 on this list. I don't know whether that's high or low. It's it's hard for any entity to successfully or accurately rank teams from every state in the country. These are best guesses. La Cueva could be a top 20 team. They could be a top 80 team. It's hard to know. But they're number 66 on this list. Of course, the Bears are absolutely loaded. They're going to be a handful again this year. So we'll see how the Bears, that ranking, we'll see how that moves up or down once the season begins. La Cueva's got a tough schedule laid out, so we'll take a look. Anyway, that's going to close it out for me today. Thank you for listening, for spending some time with me. Thank you once again to Western New Mexico University for their sponsorship and their support. We appreciate it. We're going to talk a lot more basketball next week as we're into the final. By the time I visit with you next week, we'll be down to the final several days of the regular season. So we'll have a lot to talk about there as well. I haven't got into projections for seeds yet. I might do that next week. I might do that the week after when we get into the district tournaments, but I will get into that before we get to March 2nd, the day of the bracket announcement. In the meantime, listen, everybody, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball, and I will talk to you soon.